at 9, when I was basically given to this billionaire, American billionaire, who then decided to make me his personal slave, then I was put in that mind control training. For some, I had to be really evil and the bad girl and the naughty girl. And then, I got to feel quite naughty and not innocent. And for others, I had to be dirty. And for others that were sadists, I had to feel like I'm just worthless and really bad. And for others, I had to be a little dominatrix. So I was trained very specifically to draw in the most powerful men, to see their weakness. I would make them feel loved, and then they would fall in love with me.
Welcome to today's show. I'm so happy to have you here, Anneke. It's Anneke Lucas. We did an incredible show about 2 years ago now. Anneke told her story about being involved in this satanic, murdering paedophile network in Belgium. Anneke's in the country, in London, and you decided to come back. Thank you, Anneke.
Yes, I wanted to honor your invitation because you had wanted to invite me the last time I was here in England, and it didn't work out. So I'm glad to be here.
You did it, and
Thank you.
I got the nicest studio I could for us.
It's a really nice studio.
Yeah, it's really nice in here. The last one I did in here was with John Wedger,
yes,
the detective,
yes,
who I wrote the book with. Shared you a copy with that, and obviously we've worked together, and he told me so much. He opened my eyes to the network that goes on in England, and he worked for the Met Police, and he found out about these paedophile networks that go right to the top of all of the institutions. And they dragged him into the room and they said, "You're getting too good at your job. You better shut up. Otherwise we're going to come for you, your family, and your liberty." And they did. And they tried to crush him. And now he's speaking out about it. And you're speaking out about your story. And you have for a while, haven't you, as well?
Yes, I actually went public in 2013. But my story is connected. Of course, I'm from Belgium. And so my story is actually connected to a case that was very big in 1996. That was a Dutroux case. And for me, at that time, I had just had flashbacks for 10 years by then, or almost 10 years by then. But I couldn't place them still. And I'd never found a therapist. I mean, I had been in therapy. I went into therapy in 87 or 88. So I'd been in therapy, but for the first 10 years, there were definitely no therapists that I could share these flashbacks with, or that had any openness towards.
Why is that then? Why was there no therapist that could help you?
Because I could feel that there was a wall and that they wouldn't believe me.
Okay.
Or that they couldn't go there.
A wall from them, as in
from them.
If you were to tell them what happened, they just wouldn't believe it, and then that's the wall.
Right.
But you actually felt as though you could express yourself even at that point. Do you feel as though things were coming out?
No, I couldn't really express it well.
No. Was the wall in you as well, I guess?
Yes, I didn't want to believe that this was true, and I had no context because there was a narrative of what my life was like according to my mother.
Right, yeah.
And then everything was fine. Everything was normal. There were huge gaps in my memory from my childhood that are absolutely not normal, and that are actually symptoms. But there were very many symptoms, in fact. I mean, if I wouldn't meet myself when I was 20 years old, I would definitely, or in my 20s, I could definitely see everything.
If you saw yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of things would you notice first?
Well, at that time, I was very unconscious. So I had all this programming behind me, and I would just, the way I related to men, was I could only relate in one way. I could only relate to men that were attracted to me. And, that was all I had, even though it wasn't maybe as obvious as some other women that, act like sex objects. Right? Like I definitely objectified myself in a less obvious way, but everything was about that.
It was all about attracting men, was it?
It was about attracting men, and then I was scared of women.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I would have friends, and then there was always a dynamic. It was also a replica. That was always, it never turned out well. And a lot of, I was living very marginally, even though I was always afraid that I'd be homeless, but I wasn't. I was living in LA at the time. I'd moved from New York to LA. I went to New York in 85 as an au pair. And started an affair with the man that I worked for. He
Oh,
was divorced, but still, that was the au pair right away, getting into the the groove, which I didn't realize I was trained for that.
okay. So you were finding yourself falling into patterns that have been pre-programmed into you, and
Yeah,
then you're almost like, why am I doing these sorts of things? Why is it
that's
recurring?
right.
Is that how
That's
you
right.
started to pick up on it? Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
And in fact, very soon after, he started saying, he mentioned that I was the woman of his life. I mean, he introduced me to somebody as the woman of his life, and I was shocked because it was so obvious that that was not, mutual. And this was a pattern, for example, and I can talk more about that later. That specific training that had me tune in with men in a particular way, but they would fall in love, and certain men, obviously not all, but
Mm,
that there were certain men when I felt the connection, when I felt that they would be vulnerable for that, actually,
right.
then they might start to believe that I'm the woman of their life. And that sometimes it would be very quick, and sometimes it would be longer. Or with their life partner, their soulmate, whatever, they
So
would start to believe that.
you could get any guy then. You could almost manipulate any guy to
No,
fall in love
no,
with you.
not any
Not
guy.
any guy,
See,
but
I'd
yeah.
first have to sort of sense whether this was not many men, but
Mm,
relatively many when you think of what a life partner is, or when you
yeah,
find your soulmate, you
yeah,
don't you don't meet 20, you meet one
yeah.
or two maybe at the most. But and it wasn't me that was feeling it. It was that they saying that they found their soulmate in me. And this was what I specifically was trained to do. And so through mind control, torture-based mind control training, I was specifically trained to tune in with men, especially the ones that are connecting to me. So when I was a child, these were pedophiles. And then I would become their perfect girl, their dream girl. So when I was a child, it was the dream girl. And when I was a young adult, I was unconsciously doing that with men that were vulnerable. And I knew it wasn't true. So it actually is what got me thinking. And I'll talk more about that because that's actually related to a training that was not specific to Belgium,
Mhm.
because I was in two networks, or I was in two layers of the network, really. And what I called a network would be like the club. So in Belgium, my mother, being mentally ill, had sold me into what would be what I called a club. She was driving me. She was never really allowed in. I think because of her particular mental illness, would not have allowed for her to be quiet and keep the secret very well,
Right. Yeah, that's
because
the
she
reason.
was so
Mm.
excited, to relate to brag about um, the people that were part of this, the famous
Because they
people.
were famous, they were highbrow in society, so that your mum got a kick out of
Yeah, oh yeah, that's
providing
what
for
she
them.
lived for. That,
Live
yeah.
for that. So your mum must have been what, like, must have had some kind of psychopathy, right?
Well, I think she was psychopathic,
Yeah.
and in which the female variety may present very differently, because my mother presented as a very submissive woman and very victim-like.
Okay. So when it's almost like covert narcissist, entrenched narcissistic personality disorder.
Yes, but so she was all about pleasing men, and she was like a little girl in that, flirtatious with all men. Um, and then I think that I was her victim. She had power over me, and I got all the rage and all the everything that was suppressed in that pleasing and that placating that came to me. um, so, but she really had no capacity really for shame, feeling any shame.
Yeah.
So she was really completely shameless.
Right.
Or I would say she was so dissociated that she would dissociate things in the moment.
Mm.
So that when she would be driving me to what would be an orgy or something in Belgium, she would this was be like out of time. Like it was as if it wasn't happening. And so there'd be no speaking, because there'd be no confirmation possible of this thing that was happening out of time.
Right. So she's almost going into like that altered state then. We can talk
Completely.
about a bit later about how the victims, they go in, their minds are fractured, they're compartmentalized like a honeycomb structure. And then they go into one of these different compartments, which are known as alters, like alter egos, alter personalities, right? And that's why we have the Bourne movies where Jason Bourne doesn't even know he's an assassin, because you don't know until later on when the memory starts to come back. And is it the case then that your mother could have had this kind of MK Ultra
No, I
trauma, or
don't
do you
think she
think
was
it's just
MK Ultra, but I think the dissociation is a natural trauma reaction. So
right?
all perpetrators are dissociating. You can't be a perpetrator. You can't be a perpetrator if you don't dissociate.
Or anyone in life, you mean? So they have to kind of go into that state.
You
Anyone?
have to go into an altered state.
Oh wow, okay, I
I mean, a
see.
psychopath is constantly in an altered state that they have completely lost touch with themselves.
Mm,
And so they're not capable of feeling. I mean, they're feeling a lot of
mm.
sorry for themselves. Like they can feel, they can
Yeah,
feel pity for themselves.
yeah.
They can feel a lot relating to themselves, but they can't feel for others. They're not capable of
No empathy.
no empathy at
Yeah.
all. But
That was
that's
your
an
mother
altered
then. Yeah,
state,
yeah.
that's not someone who's connected to themselves at all. That's not someone who's grounded within themselves.
It would have. Is it likely though that your mother would have gone through serious trauma to create that? Within her.
I know she did.
Yeah,
I know she did
yeah.
go through serious trauma. She was born in 39 in Belgium, before the war. And her father, my grandfather, was a prisoner of war in a concentration camp. And then her mother died when she was a little girl when she went through the war. Her niece that she was with all the time died during the war. And her mother died when she was 5.
Right. Okay.
And 5 was the age when she started putting me in these life-threatening situations also.
Okay. So it can't be a coincidence. There has to be some sort of mapping of her story and then into you. There's sort of
Definitely.
to almost, I guess, in her way, vicariously undo the pain for herself through you somehow in a perverse way.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
I felt like I was the receptacle of everything she couldn't see in herself.
Yeah.
So I had to be extremely shameful.
Mm.
I had to be ugly, bland, weak. So there was a certain way that I had to be around her, to live with her. So, in the day to day, it was constant criticism on my physique.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So she
What?
had like a list
As a
of
kid?
things as a child. Yeah. So she herself tried to please men, and her skirts were very short, so she was a little different from the other ladies
Mm.
in the provincial
Right.
Catholic village where we grew, where I was growing up in Belgium. And she was also married to my stepfather, who was 20 years older than her. So she was also a different age. So she differed. So she was very proud of being younger. She was very proud of what she called being open-minded. But she really acted like a 5-year-old girl and very sexualized always. And then, but she also, for her to feel innocent, I had to also be bad. So to be with her, the criticisms that came were, well, for example, every day the list was, I have yellow teeth, fat ankles, thin hair. I mean, it was
What a charmer. Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Awful.
I heard those things every day. But if I would ever call her on it, for example, like after some time, I started to get some other influences, and then I would say, you can't say that, or whatever,
Mm.
and she would immediately find a justification. So she never did anything wrong, you see. So when she said it, oh, but your teeth were yellow because you had to take those antibiotics when you were a baby for your asthma, and that's what made all your bones yellow. And so I'm not saying anything with it, it's just
Mm.
so she wouldn't even be that defensive. Like she wouldn't even say I'm not saying anything with it. She was
Mm.
just, it just did not exist. Anything negative about herself or anything that she did that was maybe hurtful to me didn't exist. And that included then later when I was coming home bruised from being beaten. Then she made up a story and immediately believed it. So she'll make up a story like, well, at one point in my childhood, suddenly I became a tomboy when I'm
Climbing
not
the
at all.
tree, right?
I
And then
climbed a tree and
blaming
I
it on
fell
climbing the tree
down
and
from the
falling.
tree,
Yeah.
and that's how I got my bruises everywhere, which I was thinking, am I a tomboy? Because I never was. I'm a very girly girl. And she started making up that story suddenly. And that was one of the things that she made up. She immediately told my stepfather. He always went with what she said. But she also believed it. She really believed it because she couldn't allow in anything relating to herself as not being the perfect mother.
Yeah, so she's completely bought into the lie to protect herself from feeling that inner shame. And I'm guessing as a child as well, because there's a need to feel loved by the mother, that there might have even been a part of you that wants to somehow believe that lie to kind of keep.
I did.
Is that how it worked? That's
I
the
mean,
mechanism.
I remember in my 30s, I had a conversation with a friend and I said, but my ankles are kind of big, aren't they? And he's like, like he said, you got to walk. But no, they're not. It was completely made up. It was a complete invention. And then my teeth, the first time I had them whitened, I told this dentist, well, and this was in the 90s, I told the dentist, well, my teeth have just been, it's the antibiotics, there's just going to stay yellow. And he said, we'll see. And then it was like,
there's no problem.
Completely made up. Everything was made up. And also, yeah, the story about my fat ankles, that's really just isn't even there. So that's where her mental illness, what she said just wasn't true.
But you took that on, and so did you feel like? How did you feel within yourself at that point growing up? Did you feel ugly? Did you absorb all that and become that or not?
Yes,
How
well,
was your
just with my
self-esteem?
mother was very, very difficult and extremely depressing because there was not a single part of me, my authentic self that could be reflected in her. It was all her projection. I was this little creature that was carrying, that was expressing, or for her in her mind, everything that she couldn't see in herself. And I had, she had me alone. And in the first years in Brussels, she went back to work right away. She was a stenographer for the new television station. It was pretty new at the
What's
time.
that? What's the occupation?
Stenographer.
Yeah, what's that?
So it was something that women did to record a person talking, because there were no recorders, I guess. There were no voice recorders. So she would just, it's a way of writing things.
Shorthand.
Shorthand.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So she did that. She was sort of a secretary.
Right.
At the radio and television station in Belgium, which was, just really rather new and more to do there also. So she had, she was already working. She'd left home quite early. She was working there. She loved her job. She loved working for men as a secretary. And then my father, she slept with my father in 1962. He was a composer of classical music who was also working for the television at that time. And then I think he later said he thought that she wanted to marry him. She said that she was pregnant, and he offered, he offered for her to pay for an abortion. And then she never spoke to him again. And then it's funny because the pictures of my birth,
yeah,
it's like she's looking into the camera with revenge, as if she's had her revenge on the man who wanted to pay for an abortion. And she's like, I had the baby anyway.
Well, this is maybe why it all started, the abuse of you. Is that a continuation of that?
Well, it's certainly the motivation to have me, certainly, I don't think was well thought out.
Right.
And a very, unprepared young woman with a baby alone, she was abusing me. I have recovered memories from very early abuse of her. But then I had a caretaker when she went to work, and she was lovely. So I had this mother figure who was warm and who was, just allowing me to be an innocent baby. And so I had a lot of reflection of that innocence through that caretaker, and that was lovely.
I was going to say that because for a lot of people that they get really hurt when they're young, they find it hard to heal. I want to talk about the healing, you know, a bit later on.
Yeah,
But it seems to me that throughout your process and the last interview that we did, it's as if you still kept a little bit of that innocence and that conscience throughout the process, where it was still there, it was still a little bit on the surface. It hadn't completely gone. It was still dormant, right? But for a lot, it's just
dormant.
gone. But
Yeah.
for you, it just felt like dormant. And I think that's almost what there's a tiny bit of spirit in you left. That's what I kind of picked up on from the last chat we had. But
Well, so once I was in the network and once I was in the Belgian network, it was very clear for me as a 6-year-old girl that all these people were wrong, that I was a child, that they were wrong. I didn't know the word and all of these things, but I knew they were wrong and that it wasn't my fault. And even that I quickly learned to take on the feelings they wanted to dump in the exchange of the abuse. It's just like they're giving me their shame, they're handing me in that moment everything they can't carry for themselves too. And that then is the energetic exchange of a child rape, I guess, is that the child then gets to carry the shame and all the unresolved feelings. So whether it's feeling, whatever I felt, it was their thing. And I kind of knew that, like I would feel dirty and I would feel dirty.
were they saying it though, or you could just feel it energetically? Then
No, they didn't have
dumping.
to say it, but they could, but it didn't matter if they did or not. It was more energetically, whatever I felt, I would feel it. And then, so for a little while, identify with it. But then I knew that somewhere later, I knew that really wasn't them, that wasn't me, that it came from them. And also because there were so many rapists, there were so many different states, there were so many different packages that I was receiving, negative packages that I was
You're
carrying.
bombarded with all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For some, I had to be really evil and the bad girl and the naughty girl. And then, I got to feel quite naughty and not innocent. And for others, I had to be dirty. And for others that were sadists, I had to feel like I'm just worthless and really bad. And for others, I had to be a little dominatrix. I had to be very powerful. So I knew it wasn't me.
Yeah.
But then at 9, when I was basically given to this American billionaire, who then decided to make me his personal slave, then I was put in that mind control training where it was so professional. I mean, it was so intense and
Militant, sort of clinical, and just all
clinical, militant.
Yeah.
They knew everything that they were doing. It was this particular doctor, the Hans Harmsen in Germany. So I was literally first triaged by the billionaire himself to see what my gifts were, and also based on my actual father that I had never met, the bloodline of the composer father that I'd never met I realize now that they knew very well who he was and that bloodline. And so I was now going to be treated like a slave that was going to belong, because they're all slaves, really.
Why were you chosen though to be with the billionaire?
It really was outside of myself what happened. I can't take any credit for it. But it was that something happened, which I see as a great spiritual experience in an extreme moment, and a horrific moment, and a moment of horrific loss for me. That a child was killed, a child that I love very much. And and I was crying because that billionaire had made me watch, basically. And but he looked at me threateningly when I cried, and I could tell, reading his mind, I could tell that he thought that I was crying because he had me. Which in the network, these adults, they don't want to ever have a child that cries when you rape them when you're not supposed to cry. When, when
Yeah, they have to be more well behaved and
you have to, okay,
stoic.
if you're with a sadist who wants you to
Yeah.
cry, you have to cry. But if you're with somebody who wants to believe that they're a good person and children are just liking this, then you cannot cry. So you have to, so to be a good slave, I was attuned enough by then, 3 years in, and I was just stunned that anybody could be so stupid to think that I was crying because he raped me when my friend had just been butchered in front of my eyes. So, and that was that little friend. I was 9. That little friend was just 7 years old and was just the sweetest little boy.
Why did they choose him though to kill in that moment and not yourself? Is it because you were in a bloodline and he wasn't, or was it
They
because
didn't know about the
they
bloodline then. In
didn't?
fact,
Okay.
I was meant to be killed because he liked boys better than girls. And so he wanted to, so they had given the 2 children, and the boy was to be raped and I was to be killed. And when he saw that this little boy was a little slow, because he was a little mentally handicapped, and so I'd already seen him in the network, and I loved him, and I felt so protective of him. I just wanted to protect him however I could. And well, this is something in the network. You have to know that the level of sadism is that if you ever love a child as a child, then you can bet that something is going to happen where you have to do awful things to break that
Because they don't want that, do they?
that
Yeah.
pure, sweet love
Yeah.
that has to be broken and has to be corrupted and it has to be reviled.
That's what I said earlier. But I think you kept a little that bit in your heart, though. I think, right? Even though they did break you, they didn't completely break you, did they? Or not?
Well, almost. I want to
Almost.
say
Yeah.
that because what happened in that moment is when he when I realized he thought I was crying because he had raped me, I started to laugh at him.
Mm.
But then a force came through me, literally. It felt like it came through my back and through my heart. And suddenly I saw this billionaire and I saw everything about him. I saw that he was the little slow boy and that he had just killed himself. I saw that he was the one who was afraid. I saw his fears. I saw him as a little boy who was so afraid, especially afraid to be slow. And I saw that he was very self-conscious about his looks, that he was very self-conscious about his long nose. And I just saw it all through these eyes, which were not my own, because I was just having an experience, which was a Christ-like experience. I felt Christ was coming through me.
And then did he feel that then from you?
Well, he interpreted it as that my laughing was sophisticated, made me sophisticated. And he definitely noticed that I noticed all his, what for him is his weakness, what for me was his
He
vulnerability.
could immediately feel that.
He knew that, yeah. So then he became interested because he thought that's sophisticated. So then he set out. Well, I don't know what happened right away, but after some months, I was flown on his private jet to the United States. And that's where he then triaged me to see how I would best serve. But by then, they already knew the bloodline.
So just before, if anyone's kind of watching this and not knowing that, like the full story, you were involved in the paedophile network and you were taken to, I'm guessing, certain rituals and mansions and things like this,
So I want to
parties.
say, I want to clarify
Yeah.
that when I was in Belgium,
Yeah.
the first 3 years, I was used. I was not in a ritual until
Okay.
the Belgians set up this ritual in the honor of the American around the 1972 Bilderberg meeting that was happening in Belgium then. So as an aside to that Bilderberg meeting and these prominent people that were in the country at that time, they set up a ritual, but I was never involved in a ritual myself before then. And the man in charge of the Belgian network was the, then Minister of National Defense of the country and later Prime Minister. He was not himself a believing Satanist.
Mm.
He did all the same things, and he and the mind control in Belgium at that time was rather crude. So there was mind control, but it was take some children to a stable and and force them to do things, and it's the same tactics but in a more crude manner.
Right.
And but and I was mostly used for political and business blackmail, so that I had to make the men feel comfortable that were at the parties late, that had themselves been triaged to want to really belong to the club. They have to really want to belong. They have to really want the power. And then probably they were already triaged with younger, with underage girls, but maybe not as young as me, as 6, 7, 8.
And they filmed it all, I'm guessing, right?
So yes, and I had to then also even position them, so that because I
Get them closer to the camera, so it's wow, okay, yeah, because it has to be used and kept for blackmail purposes.
right, and I had to make as if this was I liked this, and they put them at ease. They were new, but they also acted like I was a 6-year-old prostitute, which is how they treated me. Like I'm the one who knows. I'm the prostitute who knows and is going to make them feel comfortable. So the men that were in these situations, they already had been triaged, obviously have to be pedophiles. Otherwise, you'll not.
See, you won't make it
You'll
through
not.
that
No.
network. Yeah.
Right. Or there's other ways, that they could have been blackmailed. And that is what rituals were used for as well. But I was not involved in rituals. I was sometimes given to nobles. I mean, they were not really noble, but they were people from the nobility that were extremely sadistic, who were given children to kill.
But in the ritual, they were killed. So we're talking.
No ritual.
This isn't a ritual, no. So just
No.
killing the children, just outright killing them. No ritualized element to it. Just pure killing, just for the
If there's
killing's sake.
ritual, it seems like it's one sadistic man who gets children to do with what he wants, and it means that he doesn't necessarily kill them, but they might be killed.
Right. Okay. So there were two things going on there, wasn't there? There was one network which was more satanic, and then there was the other one which was just a bit more
So for
crude.
me, and in my experience again, because I know that I saw some royals from Belgium as well.
Right.
So those royals were obviously involved in Satanism, but I was not involved personally, wasn't involved in rituals until 9, when a ritual was set up specifically to please this billionaire. And that's 2 children were given, me and a little boy. The little boy was called Wouter, and I knew him from the network already. We had been put together a few times, and I loved him dearly. So I wasn't able to protect him. And then I had this experience. And then this billionaire took interest in me, and then decided that he was going to make me his slave. And he was going to be sort of the behind the scenes man to make me into, to train me. Now, in that mind control training, and that's what I was getting to from the beginning, in that mind control training, I nearly lost my sense of self completely.
Right.
I definitely then started to believe that I was having sex with these men.
What do you mean you believed it? You were? You mean
Yes.
believed it?
Well, they were creating a persona.
Right.
And everything was geared towards. So originally, I saw this man's weakness. So what they set out to do in this extremely scientific and thorough and cruel manner was to make that my expertise. So he was a powerful man. I had, through that Christ experience, seen the little boy in him. and his weakness, which is his vulnerability. So I was trained very specifically to draw in the most powerful men, to see their weakness, and to then come in and to use that weakness to make them feel that I love them in that place, that I can see their weakness, but I love that in them, which is, of course, the weakness is the parts that have never been able to be feel loved.
Yeah.
You know, that's why you have these weaknesses, this unconscious behavior. I would see it, I would make them feel loved, and then they would fall in love with me. So that's that programming. And that I was in a facility in Heidelberg, I know where it was actually a villa, a very well protected villa, but it was mostly in the basement of that villa with this Dr. Harmson. And it was a small facility. There were not a lot of children there, but it was so specific. The torture
Okay.
that creates results based on creating trauma and the trauma responses that either, you know, get you into fight flight mode, which means superpowers that are then used and channeled for their
Like
purposes.
sleeper soldiers or whatever it is, super strength, yeah. I've heard of different
Yes,
things.
which I didn't get the super soldier training, by the way, but I got this. But I was trained in various ways there.
Was it electric shock trauma, or what were they doing?
That was part of it,
Yeah.
for sure. Yes, there was electric shock, but it was very specific to obtain these results. That's to say, in the beginning, there was also alpha training. So there was a lot of physical training and just for strength and flexibility for the sex slave part, right? Which also keeps you healthy. And I always liked that part because it also is a natural SSRI inhibitor. So you actually feel better and stronger to sustain the torture. That I was strapped to a chair to watch films of men. So the first was it seemed like it was a week or something, but I don't know. So to get to their sexual perversions, I would see the face, and then I would see that man in his sexual perversion. And then I would have to see another face, and I'd have to guess what his perversion is. And, you know, my eyes were...
It's like Clockwork Orange, the movie.
It was, yeah, that kind of thing, metal.
Oh my God, yeah. So
yes.
It's actually straight out of the movie. To
force me to watch the film.
Yeah.
And of course tied on the chair, so I wouldn't be able to do anything else, and my head was in a lock, so I couldn't turn my head, but I found a way to not see it, to see through it.
Yeah.
So then if I can't answer when they're asking me what this man's perversion is, then the punishment was either drowning or suffocation. And that then was done so long that I would become unconscious. And then in that unconscious and sometimes near-death experience, I would become more intuitive. Because I would just, I would leave my body, you know, I would come back. So it was punishment, and then it was also training.
That's the training, isn't it? That's where the altar comes in, is it not?
It didn't quite work that way. They were working to create one persona.
Yeah.
So I was drugged the whole time.
Okay.
From the beginning. I was drugged with uppers because my persona was going to be the wild French sex thing. And then I was going to be given a platform to attract those most powerful men, which was going to be the French stage as a singer actress, you know. And that was going to be starting, you know, I was trained in every way. I was trained first, you know, in that mind control facility. That was not about the stardom. That was about the sex slavery, mostly. But also, I mean, there's other aspects of mind control. You've talked to a lot of survivors. You know what it involves. So there were other things as well. And ultimately, the test towards the end was that I was placed in a saltwater tank.
Mm-hmm.
And there I was given instructions. So I'd been given a picture of a German politician. His name is Kurt Kiesinger, and he had been, he wasn't then, but he was a former chancellor in Germany, so the head of German politics, West Germany, and that was after, yeah, West Germany, yes, and so he was a pedophile who liked children my age, so I was presented to him, to them, from by them. I don't know who they were, but people that were
Yeah.
involved in the network. While I, in Heidelberg, was just given a picture of him, and I had to then, in the tank, which was deep enough that I couldn't fall asleep or panic. And I was left there a really long time.
Mm.
So you just go beyond, beyond, beyond sleep. And in these weightless states, when you go beyond sleep, you become very psychic. It opens your psychic abilities.
Even more so, yeah.
Yes.
I know people that do that now. They just go in those weightless salt water tanks.
Yeah, to heal themselves.
And they inject ketamine as well and stuff like this. Yeah, my friend who's big into psychedelics and stuff does stuff like this. Flotation tanks, I think.
Yeah, it was a flotation tank. Yeah, definitely.
But I guess it can be used for different purposes. But so you said when you said you opened your heart, you could feel that Christ consciousness, if you want to call it that. That's like an innate gift that you had, and that was what was being kind of hijacked and used, right? But then they also put you through the programming to put you through a kind of an artificial programming to access clairvoyance through the torture treatment and stuff like that. So you've actually got two things going on. One is the ambient, natural, latent talent that you had for being aware of people, but then they're also programming you with torture to kind of bring out some other aspects of you, right?
Yes, and again, I don't credit myself at all with that natural talent. It was a moment that I don't feel it was my consciousness. I was sarcastic when I started laughing. I thought, I don't care if you kill me.
Yeah.
I'm laughing at you. And then that became this laughter of mine. Then as this force came through me, just got this completely different quality where he realized that I was not laughing at him. I was just laughing lightly from the experience I was having and what I was seeing, which he then picked up as, oh, that's sophisticated. She's laughing and I don't even know why. Yeah. So I don't think that it was my innate gift, but they certainly made it my gift by that type of torture where I was then asked specifically to get into the head of Kurt Kiesinger and have him basically get all excited about me and fall in love with me. And even like, for example, suddenly I would smell a whiff of coffee and then I would say, I smell coffee. And I think I'm just putting the puzzle pieces together, obviously, but I think that perhaps somebody was there with him. So to confirm what I was saying, because I was telling things from my side, I wasn't there.
Right. So you're remote viewing, actually, kind of thing, almost.
Yes, I would call it viewing because it was sensing, remote sensing.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
They're using you so you developed all these superpowers, if you want to call it that, and then would they actually send you off on missions, or how would they coordinate you to go with
him
people?
That's right, exactly. So first I had to so this is a little out there, okay, just so everybody knows.
Everything's out there than what we're saying, isn't it?
That's true. It's completely out there. But what I was made to do is I had to sense him and what was coming from him. Then I had to insert myself with what they wanted me to do, insert my own thoughts into his head. So when I'm picking up on a thought loop that he has, and there was something, so I had to pick up on his weakness. Well, his weakness was that he was getting older. He was not the chancellor anymore. And he was in the network, but he didn't understand why he was on the way out, why he was not being invited to the same places anymore, why, he wasn't so hot inside the network anymore. And I was presented to him as his ticket back in, because I was going to be this hot star in France and, the darling of the pedophiles of the network, right? And then I was going to be his ticket back in. That's how they sold me to him before he met me. And then I had to go into his, pick up on his thoughts, but then also inject thoughts into his head, which had to do with creating urgency in his mind that if he wasn't going to hurry, it was going to be too, he was done.
You're actually injecting, you can project thoughts into someone's head then?
Well, I'm not
I'm not saying,
saying that I
no,
can do that, but I was taught to do that
yeah,
then.
right.
So this was all
Wow.
before I met him.
Mm.
So the training there was a month, was in August of 1972, and I was gone the entire summer. I spent July in the United States with my, owner perpetrator, the billionaire. And then August was spent in Germany in that mind control facility in Heidelberg. And then I went back to school in Belgium. But in weekends, often the handlers from Belgium would then drive me to Germany and then drop me off on the side of the road. And then I would switch cars. I would get in the car with Kurt Kiesinger.
Oh, and so they're putting you together with that, right? Okay, that's how it works.
And then
Yeah.
he would take me to a little hotel, and it would be small enough that the people were just so happy to see him. Nobody ever seemed to wonder what this girl was doing with him.
Yeah,
No
that's
questions.
why not? Yeah, why wouldn't they?
The 70s were a strange time, and it was very pedophile friendly in many ways. And also, so there was a lot of people who had this smile as if they knew, but didn't mind that was, okay by them. And other people seemed to be completely unaware. And most important, I think that anyone who's important enough can kind of get away with anything anyway in plain sight. That's kind of what gets them off.
Mm. Just their
That's
status, no one's going to question them just because who
exactly.
they are. Right.
That's what gets a lot of them. They get really excited by that they can do everything in plain sight.
Yeah.
They can incest, pedophilia in plain sight. Nobody questions them because of their status.
Absolutely, yeah. And so I mean, I don't want to go into the details of it, all the gory details, but like what's happening in the room though? Are you just becoming like a wild sex slave? Like what's going on there?
It doesn't have to be wild. It's whatever the man wants. If whatever the man loves the most, whatever gets him most excited. Yeah. And so then there's this feeling of, well, I was the right age also because, they're pedophiles, right? So I was the age. And then that's what I was never aware of, that this was very age related and that I would age out. But that didn't end up happening because I got kicked out myself. But then to just be able to do as a sex slave just exactly what the man, what turns that man on the most in that moment. And the wild sex slave, you see, oh, John, I'm going to tell you something that I haven't said before.
Go for it.
Okay. I work with survivors. Yeah. I've met several people that were in that same facility in Heidelberg.
Oh, in adult life. So you've actually kind of reconnected with them and done some healing work with them.
Yes. And, yes. Or talk to them, that they were trained there. And one person was also a favorite of the same billionaire and was also trained by Dr. Hans Harmsen. And as we were comparing, so she's Asian. And I kept talking about the pills, the uppers, and the wild sex thing. And she said, but it was so different for me because for me, I couldn't move. And we realized that as little sex slave, she was going to be the porcelain Asian doll.
Oh,
and
no.
I was going to be the French crazy sex thing.
Oh, they're trying to sort of create these distorted caricatures to best pleasure these men. Oh, no. Right.
Stereotypes.
Yeah, they're playing on the stereotypes, aren't they?
Yes.
Oh, gosh. You actually reconnected with her and were you at the same sort of, when was that? And did it kind of come out at the same time? Were you sharing stories and it all?
Well, she was working with me, but I was obviously, I think today I would say, okay, I think we can't work together. We should just talk together. But She was working with me, and this came, she was dealing with that then, and of course, like when she didn't know who the doctor was. When I showed a picture, she she went into shock. So it was extremely powerful work, and also very emotionally difficult, and she dealt with a lot during the time that we worked together.
Was she also put through sort of strangulation and suffocate, that kind of stuff as well? That was a kind of a
Well,
typical pattern.
the strangulation was kind of part and parcel of every mind control trained electrocution and the strangulation.
And
And
water, in water, right?
the
Yeah.
drowning, yes.
Yeah.
And yes, they are just part of it. There's even underwater electrocution. I mean, it gets more specific, but it's always electrocution can mean many things, because it's always the same electrocution, but it's in different places for different purposes.
Places on the body, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Because I've heard people. Rachel Vaughan said she was getting cattle prod to the elbow, stuff like that. So I don't know if that has a certain. Is that connected to meridians in the body, or is there any reason why they target certain parts of the body?
That I can't say.
Yeah.
I just know that, for example, after a weekend in Germany with Kurt Kiesinger, I would get electrocuted mostly on the head, which I've learned was to separate the two brain halves so that I would actually not remember.
Okay, so that's kind of the main purpose of it. So then you would go into a state of
But it's
amnesia.
not the main purpose of it.
No.
There's many
Oh,
purposes
there's
for
many
it.
purposes. Right, yeah.
For electrocution, yeah.
Because then I'm guessing they won't let you out of the, what was it? What do you call it? Not a clinic. Like what we say? Is it
Facility.
A facility, yeah. Because it's military. It's like a
it's
military
actually,
facility, isn't it?
Well, actually, it's a beautiful villa.
Oh God, yeah. They kind of make it. It's all inversion, isn't it?
It's a beautiful villa, very close to the ruin, the castle ruins in Heidelberg. Very close to it, but because it's on a very steep hill, it's super well protected. You can barely go. I mean, I've tried to go to the property, but you can't really go there.
So I'm guessing they won't let you out of that facility until they know that you've lost the memory of that moment. Is that how they do it?
No. When I was with Kurt Kiesinger, I wasn't in a facility at all. I was having a nice weekend. I mean, okay, there's a sex slavery, which at that point, then I also liked, I have to say. There's a perpetrator who's nice, who thinks he's in love with me. Everything. We're in these beautiful places. He teaches me to speak German. I mean, everything was nice, considering my life and what it had been before, which was, I was just treated as dirt.
And you had no memory of that at this stage, right? Because it kind of gone. Because then, is it almost like your memory's like Swiss cheese, where you can remember bits but not others at that stage?
Yes.
Okay.
Although, even as a child, I remember things and talked. The thing is that most of these things, because they were never talked about, of course, afterwards in the network, and with my mother, they didn't exist, because there was never any reflection of anything that had happened. I wouldn't have known how to begin to talk about anything. And most of it was indeed suppressed, because my mother, no, it didn't happen, it doesn't exist. My mother, it was so, her denial was so thick that, as I said, I came home bruised, didn't exist, or that just, it's something benign. But when I came home full of wounds and crusts on my arms and my whole body, my legs and my body, full of crusts, even my face, and I couldn't go to school, I was home, but it just didn't exist. It didn't exist.
Right.
There were no crusts.
To her.
To her.
And in your mind, because you're almost sort of seeing yourself through her eyes in a way. And
well, not at that point.
Right.
I was very aware, and that was a very big problem. And so what she did to then get that power back was many things. Many things. But eventually, that was after I was rescued from the network, and the last torture, I was full of crust, and kept home 3 weeks from school.
Full of crusts.
Well, yeah.
Like
I mean, you can still see them.
scabs, you mean, like kind of
They're
scars?
scabs.
Scabs, sorry,
Exactly.
right, yeah, okay,
Scabs. That's
scabs.
the English word.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Right, and
Yeah.
so it just kind of got written off, you know, under,
Right. And then when she did send me to school, she made me wear tights
cover it up.
to cover
okay.
it up
Mm.
and long sleeves. But when I confronted her about that, and when I confronted her, she would go into this state where she's like, no, 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 no. Like, you know, her denial or no, it does not happen. And to protect her innocence, you know, and then eventually she molested me.
No, your mum did.
That was her final
Jab at you.
power over. And that, the shame I felt from that was so enormous that I went back into her narrative.
Oh, really? It made you submit back into her frame, her narrative of everything that went on. So then you kind of almost didn't believe in your own version of events, and then
I suppressed it.
And then okay,
it went away over
it's gonna
time.
go
It went away. There's no reflection of it. I
Mm.
was back open to
Right.
her version of events.
It's like osmosis. The stronger frame absorbs the other frame, and so you've now become that. Right. That's kind of how that works. So then that's why it took a long time for you to kind of start getting your memories back, right? So in adulthood, like you might have a little thing and another one and another one.
Well, there's a lot of things that are done to suppress the memory anyway.
Yeah.
There's even in the crude mind control, they're saying you don't know anything, nothing happened, you know, you had a nice weekend, or that it's there. And then in the extreme mind control, the focus was different because I was being turned into a persona, and then that persona would be me.
What do you mean you'd be you? It's not you, it's just the persona you.
It's different from, okay, there's certain, in the network, there's certain pedophiles, they get a menu of what they want from a child.
Okay.
So you have the kiddie programming, you know, there's all these different parts that are often created in mind control slaves to go fulfill a particular desire for a particular pedophile. So for me, that was not how it was going to work. I was trained to become a star. I even had training for that as well. So separate training, you know, I had singing lessons, but they were more all about, I had training specific to becoming a star. And then that training, I've never heard anybody else who's had that. Because I guess most people that are famous are not going to talk about it. And other survivors have had different experiences. They weren't maybe trained to become a singer actress like me. So the way I was trained was not to have all these different parts for different men. I was supposed to be this particular type of slave that was going to attract the very powerful men, particularly to make them fall in love with me, think that I'm their soulmate. And then the point of all of that was to, of course, get maximum information from them and to exploit them maximally.
Yeah.
And
they were they giving you information?
Of course.
Yeah.
And I could see their weakness.
What kind of information are they giving you? Is it like business related? Like, what is it?
Well, it didn't get that far. So the questioning that so I was taught to report. So while I was with Kurt Kiesinger, for example, because that was really the most prominent person that the most time that I spent with somebody, because I was really only in that for 1 year before I, rebelled. So while I was with him, I thought he was wonderful. I thought I was in love with him. I thought we had a wonderful time. I was learning to speak German. He's a really good teacher. And I loved also the German, because we went to these quaint little villages, usually on the Rhine or on the Mosel. And very beautiful.
It's strange because you've got this operation that you're doing, like to be a spy. At the same time, you've almost...
When I'm with him, I have no idea.
No idea that you're on a mission, on an operation to be a spy.
When I'm with him, I'm completely with him.
Yeah.
Then I see, there's a meeting arranged, of course, with the billionaire. that I'm always taken to. I don't do anything myself. Although I was, anyway, I was taught to show up in certain places. Without cues even. But anyway, I'll talk about that in a minute. But so anyway, I would see the billionaire and he would ask a question and I would answer it and I would answer it and I would answer it. And so we didn't really get very far because it was just the first year, but I was asked what his weakness is. And so this man's weakness was that he believed. Kurt Kiesinger, the reason that he was falling out with the network and with the in crowd of the network was because he thought he was actually a good man. Not very good. He was a pedophile, but he was better. He was not that sadistic. He was not that psychopathic. And he didn't realize that he was considered a bit of a softie. And that's why he was falling out.
They saw him as too much of a soft touch.
Yep.
He wasn't tough enough for the network, sadistic enough.
Right.
A monster. He wasn't enough of a monster.
He wasn't enough of a monster. But he didn't know that.
That was your job to find that out, was it?
Well, I was asked and I answered it.
But did you have to be put into an altered state to answer these questions in an
I just answered them.
Okay.
I got a lot of my memories through my reporter part where, somebody asks a question and it just flaps out. The answer flaps out because the reporter is not in my body in that moment because in that moment I'm completely with Kurt Kiesinger and I'm the 9-year-old girl who loves him so much and we're having so much fun and this is wonderful and there is that feeling of togetherness that he wants, that he's seeking in this pedophile connection, that deep feeling of togetherness and that I to sort of fulfill all his dreams in that moment. And there's a sense of completeness in him in that moment because I saw his weakness and I see it and then I say, see, I love you. I mean, I don't say that, but I make him feel that weakness is all right by me. I can see it and I can accept it and I can love him through it. And so he has this experience, which all of us are seeking, the parts in us that are not.
Oh God, I'm going to start crying. I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, I haven't had anything what you've gone through, but when you feel like you've got that soul connection with someone and you believe it. And I remember actually really fell for a girl and I gave her my innocence. I can't explain it any other way. That feeling of just letting go to someone and just showing you that just the absolute purity, the innocence, all the nerdy stuff, everything just came out and I felt I can trust this person to hold it because we've got such a beautiful soul connection. And then when I realized this person was just pretending to have a soul connection with me just to keep me in her orbit because I was providing a lot of attention for admiration, making her feel good, looking after her family. She kept that going and it was just it was all theatre. And the feeling of betrayal from that, I went through a lot of trouble from that,
Exactly.
I ended up in hospital actually.
You ended up in the hospital.
I ended up in hospital.
I'm really sorry.
My nervous system exploded and I could feel like fireworks going off in my nervous system from it all. And I went to hospital and they told me I had a brain condition. I triggered a brain condition from it.
Oh my goodness.
And this is all just because of the soul connection, falling in love, believing it was real, and then finding out it was just all stage show, really, like theatre.
So it's a narcissistic personality who drew you in and then gives you the illusion.
That's it,
of that deepest of all soul connections. Where you feel that something is being answered for you that you are always seeking. And this is usually a trauma response from an earlier trauma already. When you didn't have that.
For me or for them? Because I think that's a trauma response.
On both sides, usually.
Yeah.
But the dynamics are exactly the same.
Exactly the same. Because I would have thought hers is probably because when a child's young and they're not getting the love that they need, they have to perform for the love, and it's conditional love, and then you might get some love from the parents, and they learn that's the way, the mechanism that they can get that admiration and love, and so they take that and they seek control the environment, control people. Right?
What are the people in the network trying to do?
Exactly.
They're just trying to gain control over everything and everyone.
But they also probably were gone through that same trauma. So it's like a knock-on effect.
Yes, right? It's actually their own children are being put through that trauma.
Deliberately, because they want to continue
Yes.
the domino effect of it all.
Yes. When
Right.
I asked that billionaire why, because
Mm.
obviously I didn't like that mind control training, he said it was to make you strong. So he obviously thought it was a good thing.
Yeah, they
And I
do.
could see myself, I have to admit,
Mm.
that while I would never want to obtain those ends through, I would never want to do that to gain those results. The results were there.
Yeah. Did you like? Is there a part of you that liked that?
Well, of course.
Yeah.
It was much better than being at home with my mother.
Yeah. Okay. But the superpowers, like those gifts, those skills.
Well, of course. And not only that, the superpowers are gotten out of you through all the trauma, but also your innate gifts are coming out. So it's all mixed with what is innately in you. And then you're being rewarded a ton. And plus, I had been promised the world. And these promises that I was made were very specific, connected to that. So I know now that the stardom was really in order to be able to, as a persona, attract these billionaires. And the point was then to, whatever it would have been, it was mild with, at 9 years old, it was pretty mild what I had to report about with Kurt Kiesinger. It was really just about his weakness. And then I could go into detail about his weakness and what he was thinking and how, blah, blah, and I could talk about that. But
and he was paying for you as well, though, or not?
possibly,
They're
because of
businessmen.
course,
I'm sure they're getting paid. This
exactly.
is a trade, isn't it?
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you're paying and you're paying. It's quite fun, and they're spying on each other, obviously, because they're all in the network. So here I am spying on Kiesinger, who is part of the network and who's just a little bit afraid to fall out. So
surely the person that are we talking is it who's the head of the snake? Who's controlling that network?
Well, I don't know.
Oh, we don't know. Okay, it's not the billionaire though.
No,
he's just part of that.
Yeah,
he's just one of the. So I'm guessing then that he should be worried that. How do I pronounce the name? Kurt
Kiesinger.
Kurt Kiesinger.
Kurt Kiesinger. It's like it's not Kissinger.
Yeah, I was going to say Kissinger.
I saw Kissinger, but I did see
Another
him.
evil one.
I did see him at an event, but this is Kiesinger.
Surely they're all worried about, like, the billionaire must be worried that there's going to be information going that way as well to Kurt Kiesinger.
Well, they're all such idiots, all spying on each other.
Okay,
they're not real friends. Obviously, it's a blackmail system.
Right. Okay. So when they're actually in that system, it's just. There's no real planning. It's just like whatever goes.
No, there's real planning, and that has to do with the agenda.
Right.
That, we've seen, in the last 50 years, we definitely see a certain agenda that has been manifested. So the billionaire, I mean, the person that I saw that was the most powerful in the network was a Rothschild that I saw. And he and the billionaire, so the billionaire basically got permission to create this persona. And while I was there and we were at Rothschild's house, or whatever, maybe
you were
not.
at Rothschild's house?
Yes, but I don't know if it was his house. It was a house, and he was there. And we sailed, and it was on an island off the East Coast between New York and Maine.
Okay.
So whether it was Martha's Vineyard or Nantucket or Fisher Island, I'm not sure. But it was an island, and we just sailed with a sailing yacht and then docked right at the house. And so there was a meeting that night. Maybe he just rented that place for one night. I don't know. I don't know if it was his home, if it was a home that was rented, if it was just given to him by a friend. I have no idea. We docked at the house and we were there for one night. And so in the daytime, they were discussing that I would, attract adult men as, that's as my persona. I mean, they're not saying persona, but I then as a singer actress would be attracting a lot of adult men, would be pulling a lot of, Lolita style. I would be pulling a lot of adult men into pedophilia. And so they were discussing that pedophile agenda, which is clearly part of the larger agenda.
There's multiple reasons why they do it as well, isn't there?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And exploitation seems to never really work only on one level. There's always.
Yeah, there's
They're always
multiple
trying to
things
get
they can work.
multiple-
Oh, we can do a bit of that as well. We can make some benefits from that as well. I'm guessing it will only work whilst you're a child. If once you reach a certain age, I'm guessing you're not as what's the terminology here? In high demand, right? Because they utilizing children because it's then blackmail
That's right.
content and
That's right. But people
more
can get into
corruptible.
that network when they're an adult, and then they're being pushed into whether it's pedophilia that they already are,
Yeah.
that they then give into and then get blackmailed, or it can be witnessing a ritual also.
Just witnessing it.
Witnessing a ritual where a human being gets killed. I mean, that's obviously prosecutable. So that gets, if that's
By
on
being
tape,
there.
you're in, you can't,
You can't
now
leave.
you're caught.
Yeah.
But what I was talking about before, and I want to just,
Mm.
because you said a little bit about that relationship and your empathy
Yes.
that was sort of exploited by someone who is narcissistic tendencies. And this can be, by the way, be completely unconscious on their part.
Mm.
Yeah, they could not be purposely sitting there exploiting you, even though it's completely manipulative nonetheless. But what narcissists do, and what I had to do as a child as well, particularly, is that every person has these little parts inside of them, these younger parts that are basically traumatized children. And what narcissists do, and what a lot of celebrities do as well, is they will exploit their own parts. And bring them out.
How? How do they do that? Exploit
So,
their own parts.
yes.
So we're talking like internal family systems talked about. So like you have
Yeah.
sub-personalities within you.
Sub-personalities within you.
Yeah.
So, but it happens very unconsciously with
Yeah.
narcissists and people that are very manipulative. So
Okay.
what they do is, like, charm and charisma often comes from a young part that's completely stuck, that could never be seen as truly innocent,
Yeah.
but is put out for some purpose to attract somebody, to pull somebody in. So there is an aura of sweet innocence while they're actually using that part of themselves, exploiting that part in themselves to draw someone in.
Yeah, they're bringing out a stage character that they know is going to be very effective.
Well, it's not a stage character only. It is not that conscious, usually. Now, in the network, it
Okay.
could be more conscious.
Oh, really? So they can weaponize, they can use it and go, there's that, let's bring it out.
Well, mostly it's slaves that get told what to do. And so,
Okay.
yeah, I don't know how conscious it is, but basically there's something real inside you. There's a real innocent child inside of you.
Yeah.
Now, that's how a lot of people that are very charming, which you can see a lot with celebrities, when you see them in front of the camera, you see this sweet, shy smile, and, you see these things that are so attractive and that look so innocent and sweet. You don't know that person at all. And most likely, most celebrities have that problem, that they can really only fully open themselves in front of a camera or on a stage or in some public way, whereas personally, privately, they have no clue how to have an intimate relationship. I mean, we see that all the time, right?
Well, so they get triggered to bring that out only for like cameras and publicity and
for cameras, publicity, or with certain people, but always in this exploitative sense. So they're exploiting their own parts.
Wow.
In order to draw in another person and obtain what is ultimately what this person maybe try to get from you is early nurturing.
Yeah.
That you then end up being.
I became almost like a caretaker.
You were like the provider.
So I know that
of
feeling,
that early nurturing. But because it is done in an exploitative manner, it could never result in anything real or positive. So on the other side of that, the trauma underneath it could be the same. There is a trauma under that gets you as an empath pulled in and then experience this betrayal that becomes so vast that you then have like a seizure or something, that
Exactly.
something happens, you know.
It's also connected to, there's something strange that goes on in that dynamic where there's also something connected with that girl to my mother as well. There's almost like a kind of echoing back to that. So when she just left and just like dumped me, it's that thing about idolize, discard, devalue, discard. And then they bring you back again and they try another round, and it's called hoovering. They hoover you back and they mention something else. You're like, oh, wow, okay, it was just bad timing.
And if your
they keep
mother was
doing it.
anything like that, then you would be programmed
I'm
to
programmed
respond.
so I'm used to inconsistent love from, let's say, mother in childhood. I'm not saying my mum's lovely, but there was times where if the house is turbulent and love is just intermittent, and I feel like I'm alone and I'm not going to get love, for that moment, you think, as a child, you think you're going to die.
Absolutely.
Maybe you know you can relate to that. So, and then when in adulthood, where you see the same dynamic playing out, maybe on an unconscious level, we bring in certain romantic partners or people that we might go out with, and then it's there to bring out the wound. And
exactly, we're magnetized
yeah,
to do that for those little parts to ultimately find that love.
And I think that I'm attracted to women that hurt me in a way, or there's an anxiety or there's turbulence, because that's what I'm used to. I'm familiar with that in childhood.
Exactly. Well. And ideally, I mean, then the healing then makes it so that that little part, you know, that has been in that cycle, that has been trapped in that cycle, rather than going to repeat this emotional cycle in relationships with interactions with others, is to, you know, the therapeutic work is to find that that when you are very conscious, you're aware of it. So it's like, it's to find that little boy inside,
the inner child, and just let him be the loving father for it.
Yes.
That I didn't really get at the time, you know.
Yes. Or even the mothering, you know,
the mothering,
from a therapist or something, you know, maybe somebody in the beginning to help you sort of get used to that mothering, that nurturing that this little child still needs. And that's how, you know, that Christ experience of mine, and then being taught what is so beautiful now is that I get to turn that around. And in the work that I do with survivors, I get to be that person that I see it. Yes, I see it. But then I can actually, you know,
see feel them.
And be there with it and be present for it.
Yes.
And not become, you know, an authority figure necessarily, but just be really fully present with whatever it is. And I understand it because, you know, there's no difference emotionally in you, the little boy that feels like he's going to die, if, you know, with that once again betrayal, a feeling of being left and then discarded,
discarded and brought back, then discarded.
That push and
addict,
pull.
it's like an addict gets that dopamine hit, and then the loss, and then it's just it kept cycling and cycling, and just every time I tried to detach, I was brought back again. So, and that's what created the nervous system limerence, trauma bonding, whatever you want to call it. And it's really bad. So, I mean, I've gone through nothing compared to what you've got through, but I myself have gone through that dynamic of that almost like narcissistic thing.
Absolutely.
And
it's the same. I want to say for the child, it's the same. It, you know, there's different degrees, but ultimately it's emotionally. I see everything emotionally, you know, I see, you know. So for me, it's always the same story, that the child that didn't receive love is seeking it. And once we stop going into the actual repetitions where the result is the same, the healing then brings us into a repetition where the result is finally different, where the love can be received. It's never in the way that you think, you know. And unfortunately, romances are a really bad way to try to get that love from early childhood, because that's not even what they're for, you know.
No, I know,
It's just a an emotional, you know, a really strong emotional repetition. But it's always that. And so my level of trauma just helps me to understand all trauma, because oh yes, I know that, and I know that, and I know that, and I know that. I know it because emotionally, yes, I've been through it. And then I should say that as a survivor, there are, you know, you mean we're not here to compare, you know, and that means your experience cannot really be compared with mine. But if we're just comparing, there's a lot of survivors that have gotten it much worse than me.
Oh wow. Okay. And what, like the one that you've reconnected with? What's her situation? You doing some healing work with her?
Well,
Asian woman.
that was a certain time period in which we connected, and
Yeah.
what I learned was extremely precious. And but I just want to say that for me, I got in late, and I got out early. So I got in at 6, you know, which
That's late, is it?
that's very late.
Okay.
Yes, the mind control. They will really. Most people I work with have been born into it.
Yeah.
Yes.
They can even do it through the womb, like whilst they're in the womb, I think,
Apparently.
electric shock and stuff like that.
Apparently.
And then I've also heard like it has to be done before the age of 3 to really have that person for life, I think someone told me.
Yes. So working with survivors who were indeed mind control trained 2, 3, and who were born into it, and the only unconditional love they received might have been direct from spirit. It
Yeah.
might have had nothing to do with the people around them. And that exists also, you know, and that strength and that ability to stay connected to the self amazingly, you know, miraculously is there.
Well, that's what you had, right? Even from the beginnings.
Well, I had the person who loved me in the beginning unconditionally that gave me a model, a psychological model of what it means to have self-esteem.
Yeah.
Because that's what love gives you.
Who gave you that?
That caretaker in the beginning of life.
Oh, the caretaker. Yes. Okay. Right. Yeah. So that's actually that was the blessing there, wasn't it? Because
Yes.
it set the bar. It kind of gave you a certain opening or vibration, whatever you want to call it. That
I know what it's
stays
like
in
to
you.
be loved.
Yeah.
And that means I know what it's like to allow love in.
Yes.
Because for a lot of perpetrators,
Yeah.
and a lot of people who just hurt themselves, the problem is not so much that the love isn't there for them, but it's that they can't. Well, perpetrators in the network can't even discriminate when when something is innocent. They can't even recognize it.
They don't even know what innocence is.
No, because they don't know what love is, and they don't know what innocence is, and they're so far gone. So they've built all this status so that they will be protected, you know, and that they can have some self-esteem through the status or the celebrity or whatever. But then when someone is genuine, they don't even, because it means that everybody comes to them for a reason usually, because they're famous or they're rich. So everybody comes to them in that network sense to get something from them or to pull themselves up or this or that, you know, and people do that in different ways. But when somebody would be genuine with them and not want anything from them, they wouldn't be able to recognize it, or they poo-poo it, that they're stupid. That you're, you know, must be naive if you don't want something from me.
Right. Okay. Yeah, they just have no ability to understand just being a loving, authentic human being, a real human being. They're just completely not in their, you know, their lens of the world doesn't even show that, does it?
That's right.
So how do they actually see people and children, especially? Because I thought there's a reason why they go after children is because they are innocent and they're pure, and is that part of it? That's why they defile and children, is because there's something about a child's innocence that gives them power as well, though. So they do identify it in that sense, but only from a predatory sense.
But
right?
Thank you for asking that question, because that's sort of what I feel I've come to understand and like to explain.
Yeah.
That to me, all of Satanism is a huge like that reversal that is part of what Satanism is, in all the ways in which that is it's justifying behavior. But where it comes from is, you know, the little child who is abused and loses hope, you know, because when you're a little child and you are innocent, and then someone comes and abuses you, now you've been pushed into the exploitative cycle, because now you've been used and you have lost your innocence because you can't know that you're innocent after you've been abused because you're a child. So you think that you deserved it no matter what they say. And then now the message is that to be loved, in order to be loved, you have to perform. You have to perform sexually. So then innocence is lost, and there is a huge break between before and after. If you would just think of one incident of sexual abuse in a young age, before is innocence and life and the ability to know that you are lovable without doing anything for it, and to be able to feel the joy of life, the simple joy of just living and enjoying everything about life. And then comes this abuse where very often the abusers bring that sense, and in the network this is very, very strong, this sense of like, this is how you have fun in life, in the secret spaces. That's where we have fun.
Okay.
And we keep it secret, okay? You can't say anything, okay? This is how we have our fun.
Because there's no ambient baseline level of natural joy they have.
Right,
so they
because
can
that's
only
been right.
put in the like pleasure.
The pleasure
That's like,
and for a child who loses hope of ever being able to be loved for who he truly is, that child, that's a death that occurs inside that child. And every time a child loses hope, or a part even, loses hope that they can ever be loved for who they are, that they can ever be seen, heard, understood, that loss of hope, that giving up inside, that is death. That is also aging and death. And people who have had that many, many times and who don't have the strength, who don't have the inner connection to self and the greater self, which is spirit, the weak ones, the ones who don't have the courage, they're the ones who create this, status as a way to pretend to have something of a normal presentation, but they're better than others because they don't have the self-esteem, so they need to be better than everybody else. And at the same time, everything that is our regular life is pretense. It's completely empty.
Yeah.
Because that joy, like you say,
they're empty on the inside.
There's nothing.
They're filling the hole rather than feeling whole.
That's
WHOLE. That's kind of it.
right.
And so they're constantly filling the hole with status, image management, looking the part, feeling powerful,
and believing that that's how it should be.
Oh,
and believing
right.
that
They believe that that's actually that should be the reality.
Yes, that is the reality. They say we know the reality. This is the reality.
That is the reality.
Yes.
They don't even know it's not that.
Right. They don't know what it's like to be loved.
So they actually think that is normal.
They don't know what love is.
They don't know what love is. Okay.
And they don't know what it is to feel truly joyful from within.
Yeah. And that's why they've built the world on that, haven't they?
Yes.
They've literally built the world on that.
Yeah, so you see that the whole world is trauma-based. I mean, the whole structure of power in the world is based on trauma.
And then bringing more children into it and just bloodlines and connecting more people, just bringing more people into that, I'm guessing. And then some people must break their programming, though, even people that were hurt. Is it not possible for these people to still heal and come out of it? Or would you say it's so entrenched that there's very little that they can do?
I think that the more harm you do to others, the harder it is to come back from that.
Right.
Because it's all about shame. So when you're a child and you're victimized, you take on the shame of the abusers. And I say that shame is completely unbearable. You cannot live with shame that doesn't belong with you. You cannot live with shame that feels like it's innately you, because that tells you that you are bad. Shame is there to correct our behavior. So we do something, by our behavior, we hurt someone else, we feel shame. So then we don't want to feel shame because it's so uncomfortable. So we're not going to do that anymore. That's what it's for. It's corrective. So if shame now through abuse is not connected to any behavior, then you can't fix it. You can't go and fix yourself.
Yeah, but they can go back into the original shame wound, can't they?
But the way there is much longer because
there's so many things, events that they've done throughout their life.
yes,
It's like adding layers.
so there's the shame that was placed on you that was unbearable. So that makes you shameless and go do things where you say it doesn't matter anyway, nothing means anything, everything is meaningless.
Other people, and
now you're really hurting other people and you're forgetting. So for me, it was so difficult to get in contact with all the shame that I felt, because the shame is unbearable when it's not yours. So I lived with a huge guilt complex for most of my young adult life.
From your mum originally then, was it?
Not only, it was also programming. It was, as I said, I was kicked out. So when I was kicked out, first I had the programming for 1 year to become a star.
Yeah.
And then when I rebelled, I was reprogrammed. And the program to become a star is sometimes called no-fail program. No-fail program means that you can just do everything and you never wonder if you're going to fail. It just doesn't exist. And then you get tortured so that you definitely will never fail. You definitely don't want that to happen.
No-fail?
No-fail program, yeah.
Okay. I want to ask you about that, but there was, you were just finishing something off there about that. I've lost the thread.
Yes, I'll get there because then I was given fail programming afterwards. So when I rebelled, I got the fail program, which was to reverse all that no-fail programming, which was going to make me a star. Right. Then I had to, it's also called, the fail program is also called the discard programming, that basically I was so abused and repeated in the worst circumstances, I won't even tell you, that the intention was that I would become a prostitute at a young age, in a very poor conditions, and I would be, I would die, and I would become drug addicted, and I would die young, discarded, a discarded person.
That was one path you could have gone down.
That was the program that was meant to get me to end that way if I wasn't already going to be killed in the Belgian network. And so instead of killing me, because now because I was told that once they realize your bloodline, then they don't want to kill you so easily. So they'll do a program. So the fail program was then to make sure that I would just disappear. And okay, so that didn't work either, but that was the point. But that was really why I had such a guilt complex.
Because it triggered the shame and the guilt and everything else.
That was I was ashamed. I was ashamed to be alive. I should be ashamed to breathe
can you see
the
how
air.
that was actually part of your healing process?
Yes,
and your awakening and escaping.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, everything ultimately was.
Yeah, but there's certain things along in your journey that were like the key moments where you're breaking the narrative, breaking their script.
That's the soul. Yeah, that's where I feel that where you, in the beginning of our conversation, you were talking, there was something in you, and in key moments that came through.
Yeah.
And then I spoke up, and whatever the consequences, and whether I'd be killed or not, it didn't matter. Like then, no. And that no is then, that was.
What's the no to? What's that?
Well, the first time I was brought into the network at 6, I said, I told I actually had an experience like that. And then again, it's an experience I stood up after being horribly abused, but I felt also some strength helping me, where I said, you can't do this to me. I'm going to make sure you're all going to go to jail. You cannot do this to me. I'm going to tell on you. So that was
the no. Yeah.
That was the first no.
Yeah. But you're not saying it though. You're just feeling that.
I said it.
Oh, you actually said it.
I said that. Yeah. I did say that. And then I immediately was made to understand. Yeah.
Punished for it. Yeah.
Threatened.
Friends. Yeah.
Yes. And then, then you get abused so much and you get threatened a lot, and that they're not idle threats. And so you pretty much go underground. And then privately, then from the first years, I just knew that they were wrong. Then I lost that, and I thought that they were right. And I wanted to belong because that was the big invite. You're belonging to us now, and you're one of us. And that sounded really great until push came to shove, and then I there came another moment like that, but at that moment, my rebellion of the what I call the global network, the most powerful people, was so tiny because the network is just this complete terrorist organization where the tiniest no is punished with they come down on you, they would kill
It
you.
would kill you, no?
So yeah. So even though my rebellion was very small, I knew that I was risking my life.
Yeah. It created that little kind of splinter in the whole thing, and then that's when you eventually got out and did your own thing. And then, like, within yourself, because you've got so much programming, how do you even know that you're coming from the core vulnerable Anneke, and what's actually kind of the program mask that's like coming through you in that program sense? You know what I mean? There must have been a lot of dissonance over the years. Where's that coming from? Is that one of my own thoughts? Was that the programming? Is this me actually genuinely being present with someone, or is this just like the theatrical like performance of that? You know what I mean? Was there a lot of that had to happen over the years?
Great question. Yeah. Well, I was under the spell of that guilt complex until I was 49 years old. And when that broke, and, I realized, now I feel like at least I can navigate my life. So I always had a strong front persona, they call it.
Yeah.
And so what happened for me is also because of some differences in the programming and less time exposed to it, I had a strong front and I could integrate parts into the front. And then that front was pretty much me. But when you realize that your front persona is a part, so then the work that I teach, and the way that I teach parts work is that what I call a parental self, which is really the self that's not embodied necessarily, but that is our true self, which isn't embodied. But that consciousness, that overruling consciousness that is one with unconditional presence, unconditional love, great compassion, that is calm, completely calm.
It's like the eye of the storm. It's the self
Yes.
that's not contaminated by anything.
By
right?
anything,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's spiritual.
Yeah.
And so...
How do you know you're coming from that self and not the kind of...
Well, you're never really fully in that self.
Right.
Because that's not even embodied. So I say that we're, you could say that almost every thought and feeling is a part. The only thing that I go by is, what do I want? So at 49, when that guilt complex sort of lifted, then I started really working on this persona that was created. That was obviously the no-fail program, which then really helped me to go public and speak publicly. I can do that much more easily than a lot of other survivors for the reason that I was trained for it.
The no-fail was when it activated the guilt and shame, wasn't it?
The fail was what activated the guilt and shame.
So what's the no-fail? What's that?
The no-fail was prior to create the persona that was going to be the star.
Oh, so the no-fail is just the persona of the star.
Yeah.
So that's the defense. That's almost like the mask that prevents you going inwards and going into the...
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I kept thinking...
Right.
There's a self... I am looking for me, and it's not this guilt and shame.
Okay, Anneke, so they actually deliberately wanted to make you into... I know there's multiple benefits for it, but they deliberately wanted to create that persona of that beautiful, singer, French singer star, right? Because that creates such a thick layer mask that you'll never actually reach the inner core of Anneke.
That's right. And they don't know who they are themselves, so they're creating a persona. It doesn't matter who I am.
They know how that works. Do they know that mechanism and how that works? It
was powerful.
Yeah. And that's probably why we see all these stars.
Lots of drugs, by the way, to create that persona. But a lot of
like
very
ecstasy
specific...
tablets? What is that? What are they giving you?
Well, I don't know.
Right, uppers though, you said. You felt very high and
Yeah, but also
ecstatic.
relaxed. I mean, I got
Okay.
everything. I got such cocktails.
Right.
But they were very precise cocktails,
Right.
always stunned
Mm.
how effective their methods were.
Okay.
Whether it was the drugs, the
Yeah.
mind control, the torture with very precise results as
Yeah.
well.
Precision, absolutely, clinically precise, militantly precise on
Yes.
everything.
No experimentation done on me.
None? No, because it's all
Again,
done.
I got into
Yeah.
that level of the network at age 9, and I was ejected from it at age 10. And then I spent one more year in the Belgian network before I was rescued from there.
So you never actually got to. Were you performing then at that point as a singer? Like, did you get to that level or not? Or?
I performed in the network once. I
Right, okay.
performed at an event that was, leading up to April 30th, and in Italy, and there were a lot of. It was supposed to be my coming out at age 10, so April, right after my 10th birthday, and so I performed there, and I was, taught in France by a famous French singer, particular songs that I then practiced. My mother put me in music school, so there were a
Okay.
lot of things that were working towards that.
So it's organic singing lessons. They weren't programming like a beautiful voice or anything like that.
I was sexually molested to affect my voice.
Oh wow, yeah. I've actually heard someone else talk about this. This guy said he would stick a finger up the rectum when they were singing.
Well, for me, it was vaginal
Right. Oh my gosh. So whilst you're doing the lessons.
while I'm singing, yeah.
Oh
So it's like the pure voice of the child, and then it becomes a little more breathy.
gosh. Okay. So then they really were grooming you to be like a star, a superstar then, right?
Well, a French star. So
okay.
French stars are not superstars generally,
Fair
but
enough.
they're super cool.
Yeah.
So I was going to be super sexy child star.
Okay.
And then I would become a super sexy young woman and so cool, It was sort of I know who that singer composer who was training me, he's still alive. And that crowd are the super cool crowd.
What do you mean by cool? Like,
Well, okay, I never saw Serge Gainsbourg, but that's the type of crowd. Serge Gainsbourg and Jane Birkin.
right.
They were in the 60s and the 70s. They were like such an item.
Uh-huh.
And so her type of beauty, then she wears those tiny little shorts and she's got the skinny legs.
She's a singer.
She's also a singer, yes,
Right,
and
okay.
also an actress. And she would wear the tiny little shorts and then the stockings or something,
Sounds like your mother from when she was.
Yes, but my mother was like a coarse version of that.
Right, okay.
And
yeah,
I was going to be the super cool,
Mm.
sophisticated version of that,
So you didn't mind? Did you? I guess you didn't mind. You didn't mind the idea of that. I would have thought maybe. At
Of
that
course
point, you
not. I
kinda
was going to
liked
be
it.
the natural. I
Yeah.
mean, all right. I spent some time, maybe a week or maybe two. I think it was the Christmas holiday of 1972. So I spent it in the basement of what I believe is the Chateau de Chinon in France. And in that basement were many comfortable rooms. It was all very nice. And I had an entourage during that time. And I was naked the whole time. And that was because I was supposed to get used to my body being glorified and adored. And I was, I had to understand that my body was not my own. So obviously, if I was going to be in movies, I was definitely going to be naked and I had to be super comfortable. And the truth is that when you are naked and, as a child and people are treating you like a star because that's the entourage, that's what they're for, right? They were treating me like I'm very, very special.
Mhm.
it doesn't bother you after a while. Even though pictures were taken and there was everybody, but everybody was treating me like this huge star.
You got used to it. You became
I got
immune
used
to it
to
in a
it.
way.
I got used to it.
Right.
And and I was getting used to getting facials, and I was getting used to getting my hair done at age 9. And so the idea, though, was that I would look always very natural. And I know I still do. I mean, some of my persona is probably, I mean, I feel pretty much I'm me. I speak out against the network. I say as much as I can. I use my intelligence, I have the psychology and know what love is, to be able to talk about it in a way that hopefully people can understand a little bit of that reality of these extreme things. So that's me. I feel very aligned now. I'm very grateful that I did not become that star.
Yeah, I was going to say, because that could have happened, right?
Well, maybe I don't think it would have worked in the end with me because I was just not ultimately.
You were too much of a rebel at heart, right?
Yes, I had that connection. Like it's true.
Yeah.
But while I was there, I was, supposed to be used to, and I was being projected upon all the time as I'm so special, and your body is an item of worship, and I had to understand that it wasn't mine, and that
It wasn't your body. Like, what do you mean
wasn't
by
my
that?
body. Yeah,
Whose was it?
my
then?
body is of public interest.
So they're trying to say that this meat suit isn't yours. We're kind of adorning it onto you to make you feel as though it's yours, but it's not. It's what we're
Well, the
giving you.
spirit, that's more spiritual than what they were doing. They were just saying that in the public interest, you're going to get so much lovely projection onto you that everybody's going to see you as the most beautiful woman, the most beautiful girl, to attract those billionaires, right?
So they would still want you attracting the billionaires and working as a
That's
spy.
what I was going to be doing. Yeah, that's
even
the
as
main
the singer.
main event.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then it's like, okay, so that's another aspect to it.
The stardom was a cover
Right.
to attract those most powerful
so
men.
these powerful men are thinking, God, I've got a sex slave, and they're a singer, and they're like this super.
Well, he
this
wouldn't think
French
I was a
star.
sex slave. He would just think I was a famous.
Okay, so now they're not. Now it's not being told. They're not being told you're
Depending
a sex slave.
on depends.
Right, depends their strategy.
Yeah, and who they want me to focus on. And I would also have my own life, and I would have my own love life and everything as well. But for example, there's a French, she's actually Italian, Carla Bruni. Carla Bruni was also sings songs in the same style as Serge Gainsbourg. It's very simple. It's very melodic.
Yes.
It almost sounds like children's songs. And then she she connected with the Sarkozy, who was president, or before he was president. And in a week, he was completely in love with her, and they got married very quickly. And then she was his wife. And that's what I was supposed to do, to marry somebody like that.
Okay. And
then we're not talking about his weaknesses anymore. We're talking about state secrets. We're talking about, we're talking about everything that I would be passing along.
Aren't they worried that you end up falling in love and settling down with one of their kind of missions, like the person they're trying to get information from?
If I would fall in love, I would have fallen in love with another sex slave or handler. Yeah. They would send a handler.
They send a handler to come in
and make me fall in love with the handler. I wouldn't fall in love with a regular good person.
They wouldn't allow that.
I couldn't. It wasn't. The programming would have never allowed that.
The program stops you from finding genuine
That's
love.
why I'm alone. I mean, I'm not feeling lonely at all.
Right.
But I'm celibate because that's where I'm the most messed up still, because that persona could never really
allow it. So it's still it's still there as an operating system in your.
No, it's the whole history of sex abuse.
Yeah.
And sex slavery that makes it very, very complicated.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Lots of layers of complications, lots of things just getting in the way, right?
Yes. But the celibacy is also really helpful because there's a lot of uncovered in being celibate. And also I'm 62, so it's not very difficult at all. It's very easy, naturally very easy. And I'm a spiritual person as well. So I'm not really seeking, I'm really not craving a relationship. Certainly not sexually. But what happened, what I found out is so it's 10 years, more than 10 years. Every time I had any kind of fantasy, any kind of sexual feeling, it related to a memory.
Oh, right. Okay. It's not actually real. It's just.
The sexual activation
Mm.
is the magnetized promise of being able to overcome a situation of helplessness and powerlessness through sex and dominance in sex.
So it's a survival thing to kind of find peace through sex, find a little moment of distance from it by having sex, by being a sex slave, right? So that's when you get that. If there's any kind of sexual activation, it's coming from that fight or flight mechanism, right?
And I think Jung made an argument that it was like that for everybody.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Unless if it's in very young, when we're very young, I think one thing that we don't understand very well is that the programming and the agenda. So there's a pedophile agenda, but that's part of the sexualization of everything.
Yeah.
That when you were alive in the 60s, as I was, you would see that the vast difference in mores right now concerning sexuality and concerning relationships and sexy relationships or not in relationships. And all the damage that porn has done and everything on purpose. Because the sexualization of everything, I think, makes it very difficult to understand that biologically, what does it mean? We're sexual at a young age in order to procreate. But then after that, what is it? What is it?
Pleasure seeking. That's the thing it's become, isn't it?
In the agenda, it would be all about pleasure and also specifically addiction to keep everybody addicted like them. But someone who's addicted is much more easily controlled.
Absolutely. That's why you had Alfred Kinsey, all his sexology research going into the curriculum. And then you had Hugh Hefner, who was like the pamphleteer of all that stuff. And then we've got it in the schools, universities.
That's right. And Kinsey was funded by the Rockefellers.
Yes.
And that's the billionaire was a Rockefeller.
He was a Rockefeller.
Yeah.
Okay. Was it David?
David Rockefeller, yeah.
Because he was the first ever billionaire, I think, David Rockefeller.
Was he?
Was it John Rockefeller? I don't know. I need to.
His grandfather, I think, was the first.
Oh, so that might have been John then. Okay, yeah. But David died. When did he? Because he was about 100 years old, wasn't he?
He was over 100 years old. He died in 2017.
They always live to like 100 years old. These monsters, don't they?
Well, he was very afraid to die.
Was he?
I'm sure.
Well, they're just for some reason they live into their hundreds. A lot of these people. I don't know what they're doing, but that's for another time. But they seem to be.
I don't know.
It's like they're like vampires. They seem to like live a lot longer than everyone else. But Anneke, we've done 2 hours.
Okay.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Could talk all day, but it's so good. I mean, yeah.
Well, it's a lovely conversation to have with you.
Yeah,
it feels like it's not going to be on screen, but it will be.
That's kind of what I try and do in my podcast, is make it as if like the camera's not there and we're just chatting, But every time we talk, there's something new that comes out, new little insights. I try not to. It must be a bit frustrating to have to sort of do the same over and over again, saying the story, or how do you feel normally when you do these shows?
No, I don't mind. Again, there's these parts of my programming that I've had.
Yeah.
I have no problem speaking, and you can just push a button and I can go on and on and on.
So you don't mind saying the same story? Or,
Never.
You don't mind it? No, because I try to do it a bit different, where we're like, maybe starting in the middle and then going
No, if the only time I mind is if I feel that there's any kind of exploitative element there, then I start to mind. But that's obviously when that's not present, then it's just completely very happy, no problem.
Because I did see an interview with I can't remember what DPD or something, this guy, and I just thought he didn't handle like the interview well. He just didn't handle it.
Patrick Bet David.
He just I'm sure he's good at what he does generally, but like he just did not know how to hold space for you. Like you're not meant to interrogate someone with these survivors.
He was interrogating.
You got to hold space for them. These are you've gone through a lot. Like the whole thing, you lead with a heart.
Well, that's an interesting one because he interviews gangsters and everything, and I have noticed that he was a lot nicer to gangsters, and whatever was going on there, it felt like a boxing match that lasted for 2 hours also, and I just didn't really even know. I felt the pressure the whole time because I felt that at any moment there was a trap that it could very easily be turned to make me look like I'm not credible. And so I was fighting
I could see it.
the
I
entire
could tell.
time,
I
which
could
was
tell.
fine. I don't mind. I didn't mind.
Yeah, you stood
And
up to him. I like that.
Yeah, well, I didn't know how it was. Well, yeah, I'm not going to let that happen, but I didn't know how it was gonna. I didn't know if it was if how it came across, but it's if you read the comments.
Read the comment. I was going to say you should read all the comments are supporting you. You know,
I think it helped the cause, frankly.
Yeah.
Because I did not just take it, but I also didn't get mad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, that's the way to do it. Yeah. Hopefully you didn't have that experience today.
Far from it.
Yeah,
No. This is a night and day. This is just very pleasant. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Anneke. You know, and
nice to see you in person.
I know. Just
You're such a nice guy.
It's like when you see people on screen and you had the conversation, you meet in real life. I got a bit starstruck with you. You know what I mean? That's like, wow, you're real. You know,
but please, not me.
No, but it's just that thing, isn't it? When you see them, it's like, oh my god, it's a real person. There's that little thing, like it's almost like you're a celebrity or something. You know,
I'm not.
But no, it's been actually lovely, and you know, continue to do your work and the healing work and getting the message out there more and more. It will just, you never know who you're affecting. You know, just your bravery will just maybe inspire one other person. That one other person inspires another one. It's that positive domino effect, isn't it? That's how we change things.